So you would probably do something like that, and you would rake in the money. Okay, and in just that action, I want to show you how you could bust out an honest player from the game. I don't know if you saw this because it was a little subtle, but in just that moment, JJ, this is really strange. You would have no idea anything happened in this, and I would suddenly say, wait a minute, you're cheating. There are only 3 aces in the deck. I think you're holding out. I want you to very carefully stand up, very carefully, and you will see on the seat of your chair that I've managed to get that last ace. Take a look into the chair, and now get that card and turn it over. And that's the ace of clubs. So think about how devastating this is. You're a straight, honest player, but you're too good. You're too good for me. All right? So that's what I've been able to do, is actually to bust you out. I mean, think about that. What does this guy think? Not only is he going to be thrown out of the game, but all his friends now think that he's a cheat. I mean, the concept is truly a crazy idea. So here's how this works. I mean, it takes a certain amount of skill, but I purposely I purposely had the chips placed away from JJ. Stand up again, and I'll show you what I did. As JJ goes up and reaches for his chips, I actually able to flip the card just like that onto his chair. He sits down, and I don't even have to do it this deal. I can wait 4 deals later and bust you out any time that I want.
Wow. But you want to do it this deal because I just won the chips, right?
Well, I think there's a possibility. Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad idea. That wouldn't be a bad idea. All right. This is in terms of what I was saying before, a gambler, Eddie, would follow the natural actions of people. He doesn't want to show more skill or ostensibly less skill than anyone in the game with him. So he really wants to follow this just a little.
I do that too, like
the little overhand shuffle as well. Well, I do that often when I'm asked to cut. If you do that little overhand shuffle, it's far more thorough, and if somebody was trying to manipulate the cut, it's a good way to deal with it. So I've learned a little something about you, and now I'm going to do something that's again odd. Before you mentioned dealing the second card off the deck, and I think somebody brought up bottom dealing, which is actually one of those really mysterious things. And I'm going to do a strange thing for you here, which is to show you how I actually practice to do something for a bottom deal. So if we were playing in a game, I wouldn't want to deal anything so obvious for me as we did before, a royal flush or something. So let's say I still want a good hand. Any one of you. Should I deal jacks, queens, or kings? Which of those 3? Queens. Queens, okay. And remember, the cards were shuffled. This is going to be easy for Eddie to see. From the shuffled pack of cards, I'm just going to go very, very slowly and actually jog up the queens for a bottom deal. So they must be all grouped together at some point. There's one. We don't need a joker. And there are indeed 4 queens. So I'm going to place the 4 queens here. And you're going to actually see that I do have 4 queens on the bottom of the deck, and now I'm going to deal them for myself in this. Well, one more thing. This is going to make it a little harder for me, but easier for you guys to follow. I'm going to reverse them. Okay, so this is a really odd concept, but you can see that I have 4 queens reversed at the bottom of the deck. Willie, let's say we had people at the poker game. 8, 7, 6. You pick the number.
7.
7 people at the game. And John, you tell me which hand, not the dealer, because this is the way I'd be doing it if I were cheating in a game, which of those 7 people should have the hand of the 4 queens?
The 4th.
The 4th. So I'm going to deal from the bottom. Oh, we should talk about when you came over and wanted me to show you bottom dealing for a movie you're going to be in. But remember, it's 7 hands, and I'm going to try to deal the queens into the 4th hand. That's the concept. Okay. So this is a little tricky, but since they're face up, it'll be easy for you to see what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can imagine if the cards were face down, you should probably have not the slightest idea that these cards were coming off the bottom of the deck. So even though you know the queens are face up, it's still a surprise. And then even dealing the last card, there should be nothing, even when you're not dealing the bottom, nothing that looks any different. So I should point out what's happened here. You've all shuffled the cards. You've mentioned the number of hands in which I could deal. You mentioned which of those hands should get the winning hand of the 4 queens. But what I want to know is, how the hell was I able to do this?
Wow.
Wow, okay.
4 aces.
Wow.
Are you a fan of deliberate mistakes?
Indeed I am.
They're the only kind one should ever make.
You know, we've been talking about crooked games a lot, and you were telling me a story about a guy trying to keep a crooked game secure, a guy with a razor.
Oh.
I don't know if you want to tell that story. But
No, I'm happy to.
It's a great story.
Yeah. It is a kind of great story, a guy that comes out. And it's very much like the lyrics of one of the songs that we have on the album, too, Darktown Poker Club. And I talk about it a little in the liner notes. But this is kind of a great concept that, you know, you want to ensure an honest game. And so this hustler takes out a razor and opens up the blade. And it's just sharp as all hell. And he puts it on the table and he says, there'll be no cheating in this game. And then he uses the reflective edge of the razor as a shiner to read the cards that he's dealing to the other people. And then there's another version, there's always topping that, there's another version with a gambler's gun where you can do the same thing in the reflection of the gun. But just the idea of calling attention to the very thing you're using to hustle.
Wow.
It's really great. And there are any number of, in poker law, any number of wonderful scenarios with the razor. Another one that I recall is a guy who wielded a razor in a game. This was probably in the 1880s. I think it's in the Thompson Street Poker Club. A wonderful book. And this guy is playing somebody who has 4 nines, and he has three aces and a 3 in his hand. And the guy says, "I win." And he takes the razor and just very carefully shaves off the 2 extra pips from the 3. He says, "I think my 4 of a kind."
You see this brand new razor I got at Sharpen yesterday? I'm going to pass it amongst you with a set of my rules you must follow as you play. Hey, keep your bony hands upon the table while you're dealing, please. Anything goes wrong, I'm going to speak.
Yeah, Darktown Poker.
Yeah.
Right, which you're doing the Phil Harris version. But that was originally written by Bert Williams and his partner in 1913. I mean, yeah, it's great stuff. Great stuff.
Who inspired my character in Chicago, Mr. Cellophane?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh.
Indeed.
That was based on Bert. It was a shout out, if you will, to Bert Williams' song "Nobody."
Yeah, which is great. Oh, you know, here's another. Bert Williams did one of the greatest routines that Bert Williams ever did was a silent routine, a poker routine, where the whole thing. I once had a wonderful friend of mine, Danny Dew, who was a magician, and his wife Melba Dew, who's still alive in her 90s. Melba Dew, who's a vaudeville sand painter. She would make pictures with colored sand, and she's just great.
That is a lost
Danny,
art.
It is, and sadly so. But he did for me perfectly, Danny, this piece of Bert Williams just opening. It was a silent piece, the poker game, of him just looking at his poker hands. And this went on for about 5 minutes, just the reactions to opening this beautiful silent piece, which was one of his money pieces.
W.C. Fields said Bert Williams was the funniest man that ever lived.
And, you know the last half of that line? The funniest man who ever lived and the saddest man he ever met.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you ever do bottoms, deal bottoms? I remember you came over one day for some lessons.
Yeah,
on
that was for another film I ended up not doing. But actually, that day when I came over to ask you to teach me the bottom deal reminds me of this story that happened on Boogie Nights that I don't even know if you remember. But the reason my character in that movie was into magic was because I was into magic, and so Paul Anderson wrote the script to reflect that.
The porno star turned magician?
Yeah.
See, I always thought that was patterned after my life.
And I used to, I would read books like everyone does for card tricks and practice them or whatever. And I used to occasionally get him to do one. He's very reticent, I must say. And one day I got the book and this is a great one. This is a great one. I'll show Ricky this one. And I came out of my trailer so excited because, I had just learned it. And I said, Ricky, I got to show you this thing I just learned. He's like, what do you mean you just learned it? I said, just in my trailer, I just learned this thing. I got to show you this amazing thing. And he was like, I was like, what? Why the face? What's the matter? And he's like, well, I usually practice a trick in private for at least 1 year before showing anyone. And I just learned this like 30 seconds before. I'm proud of myself. And then actually in the movie, I had to do sleight of hand in front of you. And they just gave me a bunch of props, like magic props. and one was a ring set that I actually had no idea how to do. So I had to perform it one-on-one for Ricky on camera without actually knowing the trick.
Well, and
at
the
all.
thing is that, you know, this was a real scene in the film, a boy scene in the film, and I was trying so hard not to break. And finally, it just was gone. I just could not control myself any longer.
You know what I want to ask you? Since you just did the trick where you threw the card underneath JJ, the early part of your career was based on a very odd skill. Like when you were the early appearance of Mike Douglas, throwing cards.
On card, yeah, right.
Well,
Yeah.
how did that come about?
Card is weapon.
At Toady Fields.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it came from being a kid in Brooklyn throwing baseball cards, literally. That's what it came
Yeah.
from. That and the fact that there were some magicians who threw a kind of heavier cardboard scaling cards into their audience as souvenirs. People like Thurston and Alexander Herman, the great magicians of their day, did that. But I kind of combined it as a kid, you know, winning baseball cards. And those were days when people played with baseball cards as opposed to putting them in little Mylar sleeves and
Right.
selling them.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a lot more fun. But it is true. Early, the first book I ever wrote was called Cards as Weapons, and I do throw them with some accuracy and speed. You know what? I came up with a proposition bet based on this once. At some point, I'll
Really?
show you this.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
I'll actually.
I've got that.
So we were talking about the idea that you could hustle someone before they even leave their house all the way through the game and hustle them again after the game. But perhaps the most famous prop bet after a game is simply to cut high card double or nothing if you've been a loser and cut the card to win. And that's a piece that I do in my show, 52 Assistants, and it's fun. But I'm going to show you something tonight that I rarely do in public. It seems so preposterous, I'm sure I can get you guys to bet against me. So here's the idea. I have a glass, and I'm going to pour some water in the glass. I think that's fine. And I'm now going to show you something that'll seem truly impossible. I'm going to take a playing card, the very cards that we've been using for this whole session, and place one on top of this glass, just like this. And I'm going to take a second card and roll this up into a tube. And these are really the same cards you guys have been shuffling and that I've been dealing all evening. And just to give this a little solidity, I'm going to put an elastic band, a rubber band, around the playing card, which I've formed into a tube. And I'm going to put that tube on the card. And you know, you can take a look. The card covers almost the complete circumference of the glass, all right, which is very important. Because here's what I'm going to propose to you. I know this sounds crazy, but this is exactly what I'm going to propose to you. I'm going to propose to you that by balancing an egg on this glass, you see that this glass is completely covered by the playing card. There's maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so on each side. The bet is if I throw a playing card, I can make that egg land in the glass. Now I want 5 cards. That's my bet. 5 chances to do this. To throw a playing card and to make that egg wind up in the glass. Do I have any takers?
Throw a playing card from the deck.
From right here. I'm not going to move. From right here, from this spot. What if I do it in just one shot and I put the narrow end towards me? How about that? That's the bet, an impossible bet. I'm going to throw the card. The egg will land in the glass.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it.
Ain't life grand? Okay, let me see something.
I got 20 bucks you can't get out of the glass.
Yeah, that's an egg. That's an egg, all right.